I can remember the time when there weren't a lot of TVs in the town of Bridgewater. Well, it had to be in the 40s, probably the late 40s and the early 50s. And what I remember most about it, and the town has changed as far as where some of the stores were, but on the corner where the Collegiate Grill was, directly across from the drugstore, and to the left of the Collegiate Grill was Ernie Sukosha's appliance store. And on Sunday nights, he would put in the front window, and it didn't seem to be that large a screen, he put the TV on for the Jackie Gleason show. And rather early in the evening, I think probably around 7 o'clock, but I'd walk down from 326 Main Street, usually with my father's brother, Flynn. And as we got toward the center, we could hear people talking. And this was a habit of many, many people. They'd come down there because he'd have that TV turned and the sound up so you could see easily the Jackie Gleason show. And there were people on the sidewalks, filled up the sidewalks, and actually went out to almost the middle of the road. And I'm talking about Broad Street, which always was heavy with traffic. A little bit. We're flying and we get up in the air. We're over the airport and conversing with Tom O'Neill, just a little conversation about probably nothing, when I saw him having a look of panic on his face, and he grabbed me with his right hand firmly by my left. He said, Dave, we're not moving." I said, "What do you mean we're not moving?" He says, "Look." I says, "I don't see anything but the airport." "That's right. We've been up here 10 minutes and we're just over the airport. We're not moving." Now, we did have a stiff wind coming right into the plane. And of course, the little Cessna probably was laboring away at probably 100 miles an hour trying to gain altitude. And I thought we'd probably be over the airport for another 20 minutes or so for this purpose. But I'll never forget it. And Tom O'Neill, after all these years, hasn't forgotten it either. But I guess it leads into another story. And the reason we were going down there, Tom O'Neill was going down to visit the Ted Kennedy campaign headquarters. And he just wanted to check in on everybody and see how they're doing, because there were several office fronts around the city and places that were headquarters for Kennedy. So we get down there, and we're right across from the mayor's office. And his name is Corning, Erastus Corning Jr., who turned out to be the longest-serving mayor in the history of the United States of a large city. And he said, "Gee, Dave, would you do me a favor? Would you go over and tell Erastus who you are, and that maybe I can hook up for him in the morning, because he was going to another meeting, and just tell him my name." And I said, "Sure, I'll be glad to go over." So I walked over to the mayor's office. Only took probably 4 or 5 minutes, and I remember it was 5 o'clock, and they were locking most of the doors. And I looked at the very end of this beautiful, ornate building. Looking down a corridor, I saw a mayor's office, and I saw 3, 4, or 5 men, all with beautiful top coats on and soft hats. And I saw one of them smoking a large cigar, and I recognized that to be the mayor. And I said, "Mr. Mayor, do you have a minute?" "For what?" He was kind of gruff. "I'd like to speak a little bit about the candidacy of Senator Ted Kennedy." He said, "Well, I don't know if I have a minute for that or not." And I said, "Well, just 30 seconds then." He said, "Sure, young man. We're not going to sit because we're all leaving." I said, "Well, I just wanted to introduce myself," and I did, and told him my title back home, and I had the Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth was across the street, but he was just heading off another meeting, and he'd like to stop in tomorrow at your convenience and say hi too. He said, "Well, I'll tell you." He says, "Number one, I hope you're not here in the morning." He said, "I come in kind of early." I said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "What I'd like you to do, if you're here this evening, I have a list of all your campaign headquarters. I'd like you to go to each one of them and tell them, would they please go around my city tomorrow and pay all their bar bills." He said, "And if they get that done, and I'll know what to buy tomorrow morning," he says, "Kennedy will win Albany in a landslide." He said, "If you don't get that done, I think it'll be a very close election. Nice to meet you." This is a good one, hon.
All right, I'm listening. This is fun.
I've become pretty close friends with Frank Sargent through the introduction of a close friend of mine, former Rep. Charlie Mann. And I played golf with Governor Sargent probably a dozen or more times over a period of time he was in office. And I remember the last time I played with him was over to Pembroke, and it started to pour, and the lightning was there, and we were playing for, I think, a bottle of beer we were going to have in the clubhouse. And Governor Sargent could never beat me at golf, and my gosh, he was tired with me because it was lightning. I was frightened to death, and he wouldn't go in. I mean, it was coming down, deluge and all that. So we finally finished the 18 holes, and I lost the match. And we went in there, and he said, "By the way," he said, "I wish you could do me a favor," he said, "when you talk about the election coming up next week, if you'd mention my name instead of Michael Dukakis. I know he's a close friend of yours." And I said, "I wouldn't mind doing that." No, I was fibbing. Well, anyway, we all know the results of the election. And it wasn't 2 weeks after the election I was seated in my new position in the high post in administration and finance. And my secretary at the end of the hall, her name was Louise DeAngelis, and she came and she said, "Commissioner," she said, "the governor would like to see you." He's at the end of the hall. I said, "Well, certainly don't keep him waiting. He just appointed me. I hope he's not going to fire me." And so came sauntering down the hall was not Mike Dukakis, it was Frank Sargent, who had taken office across the common. And he had pants similar to the color I have on today. It's light gabardine, and I remember that he had a dark blue golf shirt, and over his shoulder he was carrying a driver for golf purposes. And he said, "Gee, I didn't think you'd have time to see me, thanks a lot." And I asked him to sit down. He said no, he wouldn't hold me up, he knew I was busy. And he gave me this driver. He told me this had been a present from Exxon to him, and he just couldn't hit the club. And he had tied onto the bottom like if you're shipping luggage or something, with a baggage tag. And I kept it for years, and I've lost it, and I wish I had never lost it. It said on to my good friend Dave Flynn, "I should have used this on the Duke, but I thought you would put it to better use."